Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Ponytails podcast. We interview Southwestern alumni who sold books door to door during their college summers. They've been doing it since 1868. And as you can imagine, getting stories from people who sold books door to door, you get some funny things and some inspiring things and some pretty ludicrous things that happen throughout their careers doing this job. If you want more information on that, just go ahead and Google it. It's pretty wild. My guest today, though, is Sarah Jayne Landis, originally known as Sarah Jayne Barnett. You might recognize the Barnett last name since it is a whole clan of people who have sold books, and I am so excited to talk to Sarah Jayne because when it's in the family like that, my brother sold, so I get that idea of like it's almost a family business at this point, and it's so exciting. Emma Barnett is her sister that is currently selling. For some of you folks who are still in the book field, you might recognize that name. Sarah Jayne sold for 5 summers with the Cadillacs organization. Whoop, whoop. Shout out to Pat Roach. And she sold from 2003 to 2007. She went to the University of Kentucky. Originally, she's from Taylor Mill, Kentucky. Currently, she is a wife, mom to 7 children, which I'm sure we're going to learn some things about how to raise kids today. I'm so excited when people have big families. She's homeschooling, and she's also a coach with Southwestern Consulting. So we always love having consulting folks on the podcast. We learn a lot. So make sure you guys get your pen and papers out to take some notes. I'm sure we're going to learn a lot today. Her favorite scroll from Og Mandino's Greatest Salesman in the World is number 5. I will live this day as if it is my last. Love that one. But before we get started, quick shout out to some of our sponsors. Quick message from some of our friends over at Cardinal Senior Benefits and over at Southwestern Real Estate. And then when we come back, we will be on with Sarah Jayne.
Hey guys, this is Pedro Vega with Cardinal Senior Benefits. I'm talking today about the one call close. Our business is based off of a very simple, short sales cycle. That means you walk in, they've never met you before, but by the time they leave, they're going to give you a routing number, account number, and social. The only reason they're going to do that is because the value is clear and the process is simple. So I love being a broker. It allows us to help people in a great way, and you get rewarded for it very quickly. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
Thanks, Andres. You guys, part of the reason why I wanted to promote Southwestern Real Estate as a part of this podcast is because this podcast is really honest about the book experience. It has a variety of people who are on here who are talking about what really happened with them. And the truth of the matter is, we all know there's some goofy stuff that happens when you're selling books. Some of it's not so great. Some of it's just absolutely life-changing. What we wanted to do is take those fundamental building blocks and grow that up into an adult version that people can really take to the next level of their maturity and their mental health. And that's how we have built Southwestern Real Estate, is taking the best of the book field and growing it up to fit adults.
Hello. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So exciting to have you on. I always love talking to people who have like families and like who have like family in general we're all connected to the book field. We've had Peter Varberg on here, Jeff Powers on here, and now I think you're the first member of the Barnett clan to join us on the show. So you're breaking new ground here. We gotta
Honored.
have
Yes.
Our plan is to eventually have like all the families in like a panel type episode. So maybe we can have like some of your cousins or I don't know if you have cousins also, but if you have like, obviously siblings and your dad sold and stuff, that'd be super excited.
Could be a long episode.
Yeah, those panel ones get to be long, but they're always really funny. But welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. Let's dive right on in. I always like to ask people what they're up to now and how they ended up from, I guess in your case, 2007 to here. How did you end up as a coach at Southwestern Consulting? How's your life been since then? Walk us through some of the highlights, if you will, at the detail you desire since then. Take it away from there.
Sheesh. Okay. So since 2007, from when I quit selling books. Okay. Yeah. So I was a nursing major at University of Kentucky, and then went straight into grad school to become a nurse practitioner. So when I graduated, I quit selling books. It wasn't so much a career thing. I know now a lot of people sell for, like 10 years. It's normal. if you can say that's normal, I don't know. So I moved into the medical field, worked in the ICU for a while, then went into family practice. Did that for about 10 years, and then quit right before COVID, really, which was convenient timing because it was not a great time to be in the medical field, right?
It's like not
So
ideal.
yeah, exited that drama beforehand, and then just decided to stay home with my kids, really. And then Dave Brown, who apparently you just recorded an episode with, he is persistent and was calling and calling, and I eventually, just love what they do at Southwestern Consulting and decided to get back into that. But
Wow.
that's the real short version
Yeah.
of the last 15, 20 years.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, and I love like the general outline so I can dig into ask some cool questions. Like
Go
right off
for
the
it.
bat, I have a
Yeah.
couple questions. One, ICU, that is intense. Like that is literally intensive care. Like the whole it's like in almost in the name. But how does that I mean, how does the summer experience of learning how to keep your
Hmm.
cool did that how did that affect, your ability to do the job in the ICU? Did it even matter? Was it even paralleled? Did it have anything to do with it? Or was it very overlapping as far as skills needed to perform well?
Yeah. I mean, outside of the medical skills, I think a lot of it overlaps because it's, how you feel at the end of a day on the book field, you're just exhausted, shot, right? Like if you're doing the deal, you're running to the houses, you're carrying your bag, all the stuff. It's like you're just wiped. Um, I think I might have been more tired after my days in the ICU the majority of the time. Um,
Oh,
like you're just running around constantly, at least where I was. So I'm sure it's different for different hospitals, but yeah,
wow.
trying to move these large patients and do all the things. So yeah.
Incredible.
Um, and I think, probably the problem solving skills, just thinking on your feet, trying to come up with solutions quickly, keeping your calm and your resolve through the ups and the downs. And absolutely.
Now, when you think back on your time at the ICU, I mean, I just feel like that's like the real heroes are the people in the ICU. Like ICU is an emergency room, right? It's like the two people who you're saving lives. Like it feels like the most direct time that like you're the most important person in those people's lives for as long as they're in there.
Mm.
And when you're approaching the job in that way, I mean, was there anything that you look back on when you were at the ICU that you think, holy cow, like this even sharpened me up more than the book field did? Or was there anything that like just really you had to like get used to right away that kind of shocked you that you weren't expecting in that career?
Hmm. I don't know if anything. I think it's kind of a blur, honestly. Kind of a different reality, similar to the book field. You enter the unit and you just go with it, like nothing else matters. Like
Oh man,
just in it, head down, and you go, right? Like you don't come up to think about what you're gonna make for dinner later, or like, I don't know, whatever it might be, the outside world. Um,
that's
yeah,
so
you're just
fun.
in it and connecting with people. I think that was huge. Like my book field experience, like being able to build rapport, connect with people, and actually see people. Um, I think that's an undervalued, like something people don't necessarily think about because a person in the ICU is often, you know, unresponsive. You're often, caring for their body, but not really interacting with them. Whereas the family are the ones that you're mainly talking to and working with and caring for. And I think probably my experience on the book field, just digging into families and leaning in that way, probably was helpful as well.
That's so wild. I mean, to me, it sounds like fun in a way. It's like so thrilling. Like every day is different. Nobody's like, every person, every patient has a different story, every different background. It just feels like it'd be it's like you said, it's kind of like where you just enter this world and you kind of check out from everything else, and then you
Yeah.
come back to reality. You're just driving home and you pick up the groceries
Yep.
or get Starbucks or whatever. But you just have
Exactly.
this insane world. That's so wild. How do you keep it from like getting that to you emotionally? I mean, I feel like that's that kind of job where it's like so mentally and emotionally taxing as well as physically. Uh, how did you manage that? I feel like that's a tough thing to do.
I don't know. I mean, I was in the ICU for a few years, until I went into family practice when I finished my graduate degree. Um, so maybe I wasn't in it long enough for it to really like wear me out, but I know there are people there that have been there 30 years or whatever, and I don't yeah, the exhaustion, just the investment and the mental, emotional load that would take is a lot.
It's wild.
Um, yeah.
Wow. And how did you know it was time to be done with health and with medicine?
It sort of just naturally happened. We started having kids and then the kids just kept coming, right? We have 7. Um, and after number 5, I didn't really want to work the number of hours, that I needed to work to maintain my license. Um, being an MP, there's a certain number of hours that you have to be practicing and, diagnosing, prescribing, whatever, to maintain your license. Um, and so I sort of had to make the choice, like, am I going to pick up my hours and do this, or am I going to let it go? So I let it go.
Wow. 7 kids? That is, you're a hero. You're a hero. That's
So six biological and a bonus. So I can't take credit for all of them.
that's still wild. And you're homeschooling? You homeschool them? All
We
7
do.
of them? Or
Yes. Sorry. Did I not?
wow.
Yes, we do homeschool.
Now, in your time selling books and now as a homeschool mom, how do has that changed your perspective at all on, or has it more enhanced it of like going door to door and selling educational products? Like how do you recall those memories, or like what is it like when you go back? Because we'd always visit like the homeschool families and you're like, wow, the nicest people ever were always homeschool families. And so like as you're homeschooling now, has that changed your perspective at all on your time selling books?
Oh, it's just funny to be on the other side, right? Like being the person in the house that they're knocking on now. Like I'm living that reality. Like you see all these families, you interact with all these people, and I'm sure you did it too. Like you see these families and you're like, I want to be like that, right?
Yeah.
Or I don't want to be like that. Like that mom is crazy and I don't want my life to operate that way. So yeah, sometimes that is funny to kind of take a step back and think like, what do people think of my life? Like, what does that snapshot look like? Somebody that knocks on my door. Um, I guess it probably depends on the day. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, no kidding. I mean, I remember, one of the things that we were just at the alumni event, and my wife was
Yeah.
with me. And wait, were you there?
No, I was not.
Oh, okay. I was gonna,
So a lot of pictures. It looked
okay,
great.
because you know what's crazy is there's so many people there that there was other guests that have been on the show that went that I was like, I didn't even know they were there. Like like I heard Andrew Neisler was there. Didn't even see him one time. There were so many people that I didn't even
That's
know that he was there
awesome.
until after I saw a picture. I'm like, what the heck? How did I miss him? But anyway, I was talking to my wife about it, and we were in a group, and I said, you know what? One of the perspectives that has changed now that I'm a homeowner and stuff, and kind of in a different part of my life, is if someone knocked on my house at 7 in the morning, would I be
Right?
do I have the capacity to be nice? Like, do I have the patience in my head to go, come on in? I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Join me while I'm in my pajamas drinking my coffee. I think not.
And the kids are in bed, and the dogs start barking, and like I start to understand, like, wow, I get it now. I get why people
Yeah, no,
maybe
that's a
didn't.
great point. I don't or even yeah, the moms when you knock and you wake up their kids in the middle of nap and you're like, "Oh, it's not a big deal." I'm like, "That is a big deal.
Yeah.
Get off my porch."
Why did you ring? You're supposed to
Right.
knock. And why are you facing me? Turn sideways. What are you doing? Start over. But don't actually
Yes.
just leave.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man. Okay, so 7 kids. Okay, I have 0 kids. So on average, we have 3.5 each, right? So let's if I had 3 kids, uh what's some advice, some parenting advice? I'm gonna ask you this because my wife and I are, that is in the cards, and that is something we're looking forward to in the future. I just hung out with my brother who's got 2 little ones. But from your 7, what are some like top tips you would give, aspiring parents here?
Oh man. Hold it loosely. Expectations are from hell, right? Like somebody told me that and it took me a minute to let that sit in, and I'm like, no, I think that's pretty accurate. Like expectations will get you in trouble. No, I mean, in light of the book field, since that's why we're here, right, on this podcast, like I think there's a lot of stuff that translates to parenting, or even between friends that we have that have had kids, and just hearing the difficulties or the things that they are talking about or struggling through or whatever. I think a lot of it is just letting go of self, like doing what you don't want to do when you don't want to do it. Right? You have to wake up at 3 in the morning when you don't want to. You have to step aside and do that parenting moment when it's not convenient, right? Or that fit or whatever. I think learning and having to practice that and instilling some of those character qualities, like in the book field, you just do what you need to do even when you don't feel like it. I think that's a big part of parenting.
Wow.
Just the consistency, I don't know if there's one thing like.
That's wild. Holding it loosely is a big one. What do you mean by that? Like, as in, like, just is it because kids' personalities are all different, so it's never going to be the same kid that you're raising, so you kind of have to like let it be, or like more as far as just the independence that each kid has, or what did you mean by holding it loosely?
I think for me, for us, it's just the plan doesn't always go as you plan it. Like people think, oh, we'll have 2 kids, or we'll start having kids in a year, and our kids will do this. Like you just don't know what's in the cards, right? Can you have kids? Can you not have kids? How many will you have? Are they healthy? Are they not? Like, do you have struggle? I don't. There's just so many different things, and then the personalities, they're all so different. Like you might have this unspoken expectation of what your kids are going to be like, or your relationship with your kids, or how you're going to parent, and then it's real life and you're like, oh, I didn't think I'd react that way, or I didn't think that would be that way, or this is harder than I thought, or this is easy or fun, or it's just different. And maybe that's just me, I don't know, but I think holding it loosely and just they're each their own person.
I'm learning. I'm like writing this down right now. I'm like, this is gold, sage wisdom, parenting wisdom. Now, how old are your kiddos? Or like, what's the age gap between the 7?
12 down to 2.
Holy cow! Any twins or anything in there? There had to have been a repeat.
No, no, but our bonus one is like in between my 2 youngest. So then
Okay.
it's like 2, 3, 4
Wow,
years old.
incredible. Do you remember like when you were selling and you'd meet these giant families? Like I one time I met
Yes.
a family of like 21, and
The
it was just
Amish.
like
Yes. Tell me they were Amish. They had to have been.
it's so crazy. You go like, I grew up with 3 kids, my 2 brothers, and I go, my poor parents. And then you meet like these giant families. It's pretty wild. So do you guys think a 7 is good, or you guys maybe, or maybe is that also what you're holding loosely? Is
We're
there gonna
not
be
going for
12?
21, no. Yeah.
Oh man. Now, did you come from a big
Yeah.
family yourself? Like, is it just you and Emma, or how many? I don't even know. I guess how many siblings you guys
No,
have?
there's 7 of us, actually.
Oh,
I didn't anticipate having 7, uh, but here we are. So I am from a big family, so that
oh,
to a degree seems normal, I guess.
oh. So to you, this is just like, this is life.
Oh, well, it's a whole different thing growing up in it than parenting it.
But the
That
name
is
lives on.
not the same.
That is so funny. So there's 7. I didn't know there was 7 of y'all. Did all 7 of you sell
Mhm.
books? No.
All but one.
Oh, black sheep. Who is that?
Yes,
Who's that? Is
that
that
is
you,
Michael.
Michael?
Yes.
Michael,
Uh-huh.
what are you doing, Michael? Come on, man.
I know. Not making good choices.
Now, was he the youngest or something? Is that why he didn't sell, or?
He's second to youngest, so he's right above Emma's the youngest, actually.
Oh, okay.
So he is right above her. I think if you were to ask him, he would tell you that he wishes he had.
That's interesting.
But he took a different track.
Wow. Now, by the way, if it's easier to just remove your headphones so that you're not getting tired, totally fine. Don't worry about
I
the
mean, if I just sit like this, I don't really care. Whatever.
whatever's comfortable. As long as you're comfortable, we're all good. I think the sound will be okay, just in case. So if you do get tired, feel free to remove it.
Okay, sounds good.
No worries. 7, youngest is 7, all but 1, and then your dad. Did your mom sell too?
No, but they were married. My dad sold 3 summers, and they were married his 3rd summer, I think. So she went out, but she said they never even asked her to sell. Like, that wasn't really an option. So she worked at the mall or delivered pizzas or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when you, because I want to get to your consulting part of your job, but before, this is so interesting to hear about your family. So when your mom has 6 of her 7 kids sell books, like how does she? Do you ever talk to her about what she thinks of the whole thing? Does she think it's crazy, or like what's her perspective on it since she didn't join it?
I think they're both 100% supportive, and have half, been inundated with the Kool-Aid. But I think the other part too is she's like, do it for when it's good and then get out. It's not the end all be all. Not everybody has to do it. Like, I think they never pushed it on us, or so I'm kind of
Oh, wow.
surprised 6 of the 7 of us did it, to be honest. I actually swore my whole, growing up years that I would never
Yeah,
sell books.
we've heard
Like,
this.
not for me.
Yeah, I think Peter Varberg was saying this, that like because his parents sold, and the same idea with you was like I never thought I would do it. I mean, my dad did it, and I never thought, eventually I would. Reed Cersei was another one like that. His dad was like this. His dad didn't sell, but he was like the CFO, and same thing. He says like I knew about it. I knew my dad had done that, or he was involved, but he never pictured himself doing it.
Yeah.
And and it's interesting. Growing up for you, do you, after you sold, did you see like the connection of some of your upbringing at all, or did you ever make, like for example, did your dad go, all right, well, 3 positives for a problem, or did your dad, you know what I'm saying, or did you take cold showers growing up the whole time? Or something?
Yes. That I don't even know if I would realize the things that have come from it, because it's probably influenced our family so much. It was at a really pivotal time in my dad's life that he sold books. That he had kind of been wayward, made a lot of bad choices. So was in college later in life, and then was recruited to sell books because my uncle actually sold. And anyway, I think that was a very foundational kind of like restart for him, and building that character and those principles and kind of solidifying that. So I think that I know it definitely impacted how they parented, and their, the principles and just the habits and the character and all that stuff. So I don't know if I'd be able to pick it out, because I'm like too underwater, I think.
Yeah, it was just part of the way, like
Yeah.
that you were.
We always heard
It's
the
just
stories.
so,
Well, yeah.
yeah, it's so intertwined that it's just like whatever. It's part of your upbringing. That's wild. And then, do you think that your kids, like, what do you want your kids to sell, or how do you think that'll go? Do you think that they're gonna want to, or do you ever talk to them about it? Or I mean, I guess your 12-year-old.
I don't know. Well, we have some book girls living with us this summer. We've hosted a number of years. So
Oh,
they get to see
sweet.
it like up close, right? The real thing, like running out. They've seen the execs. We've hosted Sunday meetings and stuff like that. So they've seen it. A few of them are like, I will never do that. I just think they're embarrassed. But there are, my daughter, Nora, she's like, I'm going to do that. And I'm bringing these 2 people with me. So she's already
She's
got it
already
planned out.
building a team. She's already got a
Yeah,
team going.
she's on
Wow.
it.
Unbelievable.
So we'll see. I definitely, well, I mean, yeah, you've done it. I don't think it's something that if you're forced to do it, it's not going to work out, right?
Yeah,
Like,
you got to
I
be
wouldn't want
pretty
any of my
willing.
kids. Yes. Yes. If they jump in for themselves, then good for them. If not, that is okay.
Yeah, I was just talking to Amy Rogers at the reunion, and her kid's selling this summer, and she was talking about what it's like on the parenting side of it because, you know, as a mom, she's very protective and she knows what her kid's about to go do, and he calls, home every once in a while or whatever, and they just talk about how the day's going, and it's hard for her because she knows what it's like, and so it's a balance of like, "Hey, go do it," but also, "My baby," or, that balance, and so
Yeah, that would be really hard.
yeah, very interesting. Very interesting stuff. Now, would you if your kids sell, I wonder if you'd be the first 3 generational family where it's like your dad, you, and then your kid, like there's a grandpa, mom, and kid. That would be
Yeah, I don't know.
historic. We gotta find this out. No, Amy, take note. We gotta find out if there's ever been 3 generations of book kids. That's good. Um, onto some consulting stuff. You know, I love hearing about people like we've had Yvette on here, Dana Potoff, Will Metcher, obviously Dave Brown, just to name a few. But I always like picking the brains of people who are working there and kind of what that lifestyle is like and what you're doing. So, can you talk to me a little bit about how you mentioned David called you a couple times, but once you finally started coaching, how's that journey been and what's kind of the day to day for you to look like today? How's that developing for you nowadays?
Yeah. I am part-time consulting, and the other part-time I am, homeschooling, parenting, all those things. So yes, it's been awesome. Like I mean, Dave had just been in touch, like, here's what we're doing, update on the company, all that kind of stuff, like staying current. Um, Even when I was like in the medical field doing all that stuff. And then yeah, slowly and like you've probably experienced. How long has it been since you sold? How long have you been out?
I sold 2012 to 2016. Yeah, so 7, 8 years. No,
Okay.
7 years.
So it's getting up there, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my
Um,
gosh.
right?
What?
I
It's
know.
2023, right? Oh no, it's been 7 years.
Well, it's been 20 years since my first summer. That makes me feel super old. Um, but also it's kind of nice, isn't it? Like those were the days that you hoped for when you were knocking. Like one day I'll be an alumni. One day this will be over. Here we
This
are.
is
It's
true.
over.
Someday I can look
Yes.
back and say I'm out. No more
Yes.
Kool-Aid.
Yes. But all those that character and that the work ethic and all this stuff that kind of drills into is like boot camp for life, right? There are other ways you can get it, but it's definitely a good boot camp for life. Um, that stuff like carried, into all the other aspects of my life. It helped me get my jobs that I had, like in the medical field, like popped up on my resumes and people are like, what the heck? You did what? Like, right? You're
Yeah.
like totally different world. So that was pretty cool to see that. But point being is if you're not using it, you kind of start to go backwards, like coasting. And I started to feel kind of like I was that. Like I had this moment one day where I had this flashback to like moms on the book field that I said I didn't want to be like, where they're saying things are hard that are not hard. Right? Like, oh, I have
Mm,
too many doctor's appointments with the kids and I have to go to the grocery and it rained. And you're like, wow, right?
yeah.
Like that's not like you're whining about what? Like, um, and I had a day like that and I was like, oh my gosh, like what am I doing? Like I'm whining about things that aren't hard. And so to me, that was just kind of like this switch flipped of like, I need to grow. Like I need to lean into something that's actually hard. And so it's kind of cool, God timing, like just different things in life. And Dave called again. He's like, how about part-time? And I was like, I'm in.
Sounds
Um,
good.
yeah,
Wow.
sounds good. So it's been a fun journey.
And for people listening who maybe haven't heard other episodes about what consulting is,
Yeah.
in your own words, how would you describe what you do?
Man, helping people. You can't be your best self by yourself. Right? So it's that outside perspective, the accountability to do the things that you know you need to do, figure out other ways to go about it, right? When you're hitting those walls, like how to overcome your own obstacles, your own greatest advocate, right? Like you're your own greatest asset is what I mean. And your own worst enemy. Like your weaknesses get in your way and we can't see what we can't see. So yeah, consulting is just fun to come alongside and be on people's team and help them live a life of joy and fulfillment, like getting out of their own way and going where they want to go, hitting their goals. It's
Beautiful.
fun.
And so, in a technical sense, you meet up with people sometimes multiple times a month, right? Usually, it's like
Yeah,
depending on
twice a month.
what they need, and you coach them on things that, like you said, it's not necessarily just about how to sell more. You're really trying to help them understand and reach a balance almost in their life that helps them be the best version of themselves, and also, like you said, get out of their own way. That's so cool. That is so cool. As you've done this, you said COVID. When did you start with consulting? This is just after COVID, right before COVID?
It was just over a year ago. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
the pandy hits and then you get into this. And over the last year, as you've gotten to know more clients and as you've gotten to understand the world of sales through other people's eyes, I asked this to Dave, and I'm curious to see if this is kind of the similar answer for you. Is when you think of your clients, and obviously each of them are their own case, but what is the most like common or underlying thing or mistake or misconception that they have about improving and performing at a higher level? Like, what is the most common thing you're helping people solve that in your eyes so far?
I mean, probably just that, like the self-limiting beliefs.
Oh,
I think
yeah,
everybody has them. They're different for different people, but like helping them get to the core of that. Um, I don't
yeah.
know. That would be my initial answer.
Well, and that's great. That's actually, I was curious if that was going to be something. Dave said their schedule, but I appreciate that you said that too, because I think that is even probably even before schedule. It's just learning how to get people to believe in themselves. To get that. What would be some advice that you would give, or that you find yourself giving often when it comes to self-limiting beliefs and overcoming that barrier, that mental barrier?
I mean, I think the first thing that we kind of get to work on is just awareness. Is like and Southwestern, right? Being on the book field, I think it helped a lot with that, like the whole self-talk. Like I don't know if
Mm,
you bought into that, but
yeah,
like people, I mean, it's weird. It's definitely not normal, but we are what we think about. And I think that that absolutely plays out in the professional world with all these different clients that we work with. Like the things that are holding them back are really just themselves, not, the lack of confidence or the uncertainty or for whatever reason it might be. Yeah, so just being aware of what we're even telling ourselves.
oof, that's good. Write that down. I love it when people bring up self-talk because ah, probably one of the most influential books I've read is What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. Full disclosure, didn't finish it, but even like the first chunk that I read, I mean, I'm still, I go back to it and that's how I read books sometimes. But like even the concept of, I think I read in that book, if the person that is talking to you every day was sitting next to you, would you hug them or punch them? And I'm always constantly trying to be aware of that. Just like, okay, how am I loving on myself today? Because, my wife loves me and, my friends, my family love me, but the love that I show myself first is probably more important than anything else. And just, I'm so glad that you said that. Like, huge,
Self-talk, yes.
huge for the program. Huge for the program. Um, and then I guess last question, when it comes to what you're up to now, then we can get into some book stuff. But as you're looking forward the next 5-10 years, do you have any specific goals or anything within either consulting or as a mom or as a homeschool mom that you're like really excited about that you're looking forward to?
Oh man, I mean, there's always goals. But yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I'm learning right now is just transparency. It's just being in my own lane, like kind of making my own, like just being me. Like teaching, parenting, selling, coaching, like wearing these different hats and figuring out what that looks like. I don't know what the next 5 years will look like, but I hope I just keep getting better and better and growing and helping other people do the same. Um, so yeah, it might look,
Ooh,
I'm not sure.
I love
Yeah.
that. Staying in your own lane is so big.
Yeah.
I have a hard time myself on that because sometimes I want to wear all the hats, and it's just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Put your own mask on before helping others. That's why they tell you that on the airplane, right? Like, get your own oxygen
Yes.
mask on first. I'm out here trying to help people with their oxygen masks, and sometimes I choke for air myself. So that's a good reminder. stay
Yep.
stay in your lane. I love that.
That's right.
I love that. Okay, so let's wind the clocks back because I'm curious to see how in the first, what your earliest memory is of thinking, okay, maybe this is something I do want to do. And how did you decide, yep, okay, I'm gonna go sell books? Like what was happening? Normally I ask who recruited you and whatnot, but you can go into that too.
Yeah.
But I guess yours is a little different because your dad sold and you kind of grew up with it. So when you go back, when is the first time you remember going, okay, all right, fine, I'll sell, you know, let's go do this.
Yeah, that is it's an interesting memory because I mean I was like the shy kid, like never like the spotlight, none of that stuff. Like internally motivated, do my own thing, confident, driven, but not so all the stories that I'd hear growing up, there's like, of course, the lessons learned and the character built and all that stuff. But then like the embarrassing crap that happened, right? And then like, yeah, like the people pooping their pants and just this stuff. And you're like, what the heck is this? Like, this is not, I have zero interest in participating in this, right? Like, no. So just kind of wasn't even in question. And to the degree, like none of my family ever asked if I was going to. Um, not because just because of my personality. I think they kind of just assumed like she will not be selling books.
Okay. No,
So
sorry to interject. Quick question. So
yeah,
from my own perspective, so you said your uncle sold, he recruited your dad. And then are you the
something
old
like that. They were at the same time. Yeah.
okay. And are you the oldest of the seven?
No, second
Oh, okay. So your sister, uh, your s-
brother.
your brother had sold, and so
Yes.
oh, I see. So there was even more. I wouldn't say pressure, but there was more like of a precedent of your family doing this or being involved with books. And did you
Yeah.
have cousins like your uncle's kids that they sell?
Yes. So two of his kids sold. Stevie Brown, I don't know if he's been on here or not. He'd be a great one.
Okay.
Living overseas now. So he sold 8 summers and was still selling. And he's like crazy goofball, like off the wall, like opposite of my personality. I'm like, no, it just makes me uncomfortable thinking about doing some job with him. Like, what position is he going to put me in? Um, and then my brother did sell the summer before I did. And honestly, it was a matter of obedience for me. Like I felt like God was telling me to do it, and I didn't want to do it. But it was just a moment. It was just me, and I'm like, I'm doing this. And then I just went and told my brother, I was like, hey, I'm going to do it I'm going to do it this summer. He was like, what?
Oh
I
man.
was like, yeah. So that was pretty much it. It was just a decision. I sold right out of high school. So I decided
Oh.
in my senior year that I would do it. And yeah, took a friend out with me from high school and we went out and sold books.
So okay, so that is fascinating. I recruited my brother, and he sold right out of high school as well. So that's an interesting. Alone is a very interesting dynamic to the whole thing.
Yes.
Now, so you're in high school, you're about to go sell books. You're pretty familiar, or how familiar would you say you were when you were driving to Nashville, for example? Like the fact that your uncle, dad, cousin, and brother had sold. Were they pretty good about getting you trained, or did you go into that sales school blind as a bat?
No, I mean, I was told to memorize the sales talk. So I was doing that and that's all I knew.
Now, did you get to Nashville with them or no way? Because my brother, I told him,
No,
"Hey,
I
memorize the
think
sales
so.
talk," and he didn't have it. I
I mean, I tried. I don't know that I'm sure I didn't have it like perfectly, but yeah, I definitely was doing my best to memorize that thing on the way down and all the things. So
Now you're sitting at sales school, and what's your resolve? Like, was it more like competitive? Were you like, there's no way I'm gonna have a worse summer than my brother or my cousin? Or were you like, I don't care. I just try to survive. Like, how did you approach it going in?
Probably just the survival. Like, I had no doubt that I would outwork, like anybody. Like, I was there to do it. Like, resolve was there 100%. Like, I'm here, I'm going to do it. Um, but I knew I was way outside of my box, right? Like, it's not my wheelhouse. Like, I don't go to people door to door for fun, or I was not the natural salesperson. So yeah, definitely I was a sponge, and
So,
attribute, all of it to that, be teachable.
so the coachability was your road to success. I mean, that's what led you and guided you, which is big because some people don't have that right away. Some people don't figure that out until like week 3 or 4 of their first summer, where they're like, "Oh, maybe I should trust a 160-year-old system that's been put in place."
Right. Maybe
For
they know what they're doing.
yeah. So okay, and you get out to the book field. What was it? I always like asking about firsts. Like, do you recall like your first summer or like your first week and first door even, or like any of those firsts? Do you recall?
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, I was teachable to a fault, probably. Like, they, all the swag they give us at sales school. First of all, my sales school was like 8 people, and Craig Soder led it. So it was like
Yeah.
all of the Europeans and then like 8 Americans. So we were just at the company, this little thing. Um, yeah, they give us a visor, the Tupperware to put your PPJ in, like all the things. So, like, day one, I've got it all. Like, I've got my visor on, never worn a sun visor in my life, but I've got it on that day. I was like ready to go. And my cousin pulls up. It's like a follow day for my first day. I'm like, oh my gosh. And he, he doesn't have his visor on. So I'm like, oh, I guess I don't have to wear this. So I like take it off. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And typical, probably like hazing first year follow day, like puts me in all these awkward, uncomfortable situations where I'm like, what the heck? Like, um, yeah, it's a blur, but I was like a princess that didn't speak English at one house, right? Where they're like, just making up all this stuff. So yeah,
So
that was a blur.
for people who don't know the context of Southwestern, maybe someone's listening, a friend of yours or something is listening that they don't really understand what you mean by uncomfortable situations. Like, for example, sometimes you'd have someone follow you and you say, "Hi, my name is Andres, and Sarah here's got something to say to you," and they just turn and watch. And oh,
Exactly.
we're
Like, put you
selling
on the
books,
spot.
like that.
Yes.
Gold, gold,
Yes,
gold.
absolutely.
This time you're a mute. All right, here we go. Sarah Jayne,
Right,
and you
right.
have to like fake like the
This is not okay. What is happening? And why am I going along with it? Right? You're just like stunned.
oh, and I bet you being a cousin, he was just like, "Oh, we're gonna
Oh, he
really
was
make her go
loving
through
it.
it."
Yes. I'd love to hear his retake on that day. Um, yeah.
Brutal, brutal. No, do you remember the first time you sold something? I love this one because it's the one where you just get out of the house and you go, "Oh my god, it works!" Like the sales
Right?
talk, they actually weren't lying. You remember
Yes. I
that?
remember my first day more than I just remember the first. Yeah, because I had like 7 customers my first day, and I was
What?
pissed. And, like, so disappointed because they go through all this math at sales school with you, and you're like, "Okay, yeah, if you see 30 families, even if you're not good, you should get 10 of them to sell yes." Like, just the numbers, it's a numbers game, and so I'm, like, trying to play the numbers game, and I'm like, "Dang it." Like, so I remember calling in my stats that night, and I'm just, like, so, like, discouraged. I'm like, "This is gonna be harder than I thought." Um, and he's like, "Okay, well, it gets better. It's your first day. Did you get your demos in?" I'm like giving him my stats, and he asked my customers and my units and stuff. And I told him, I'm like, I don't know, like, I don't know. And it's just that whole like, it gets better. And he's like, that day I was so pissed. He's like, you outsold me, and it was your first day. Like, but I was dumb and I didn't know, like,
Yeah.
so yeah, it definitely works. You do the deal and it works, because I definitely wasn't good.
And it's a big deal that he didn't make that big of a deal about your 7 customers. Like, you could have been like, "Oh my gosh, like, most people don't sell
Absolutely.
anything," or like, and they could have like really shifted your perspective and expectation, but instead he let you be mad they didn't get 10, which
Yes.
realistically is actually a ton. Like, uh,
Right.
especially for your first day, first year. Like, that's quite a bit. Now, did that summer go pretty well, or were you one of those more of that was like ramp up as the summers went on, or like were you always like,
No, I mean, I think I sold like 3,000 in 8 weeks. I had, since
wow,
out of high school, it was a shorter summer. Um,
that's a big
and I
deal.
do, like you said, attribute it to a lot of the leadership, like that they let me be frustrated and compare myself to the people that had been out there, 6 weeks when it was my first week. Um, and, with the student leaders who were selling 700 units, like, dang it, I only had 4, and you're like, gosh, what are they doing that I'm not? Uh, and they just let me go. They let me run after it. So definitely, yeah, they did
Amazing.
a good job
How
not
did you
bursting my bubble.
Yeah, no, like letting you be in your own world. How did you know you wanted
Yeah.
to come back? Like, how why 2? I mean, you did 1 and you're like, "All right, I did the 1." But how did you know, "All right, let's do 4 more," or at least 1 more?
Oh, I definitely took it one at a time. I was not one of those people that signed up for the next 5 or whatever. Um, no, I think that feeling driving back to Nashville after my first summer,
Oh,
um, that felt amazing, right?
yeah.
Like, it's over, and I did it. Like,
Yeah.
the most uncomfortable, hardest thing that, every day I was out there doing it, I didn't wanna do it, and it was over. And then I think, just as I reflected on the value of that and all the things that I'd gotten out of it and the friendships and just all of it, I was like, why wouldn't I do this again? Like, I'm paying for school. Like, what, why would I not do this? Like,
Yeah.
so it just kind of made sense.
Yeah. We've talked about that feeling here on the show sometimes before of that going when you at the time would have been you got your cashier's check. They don't do cashier checks anymore. But at the time, you like the last thing you deliver the last bit of your books. You go to HQ
Yep.
and you pack up, and then you go to the bank and you take out a cashier's check for everything that you've collected that summer, which is essentially is roughly what you're going to get paid because you've already kind of paid your expenses at this point and remitted what you needed to. So it's essentially like what you're gonna like your
Yeah.
check. And you go to the bank and you go, "Oh, I need a cashier's check. I need to cash out everything and close this account." They give you that cashier's check. You close the account. You get in your car. You hit drive. It's full of gas already. And then the next thing that happens is you drive to Nashville. And oh my God, that feeling is, I mean, I've never ran a marathon before. I've ran far and I've never, like, I don't know that I've ever had another experience of accomplishment like that in my life where it was
Mhm.
like, hey, I did it and I left it there and left it out there and I learned a lot and I'm a different person coming back. So I'm glad you brought that up
Yeah.
because yeah, that is a wonderful feeling. Um, I have to ask, do you and your siblings keep track of who sold more? Or are you guys competitive that way where it's like, all right, Emma, or Sarah, or Dad sold 10,000 units, or like, do you guys compete that way? Do you guys?
Not too much. Yeah, I mean, I currently hold the family
Oh,
record, but I've been, pushing Emma to break it, and I would love her to. So, competitive, we didn't. Maybe if we would have been selling at the same time and kind of on the same track, like if Emma and I would have been selling at the same time, there probably would have been some competition. But being that we're so far apart in years on the book field, I think it's just fun camaraderie. Yeah.
so I'm talking to the goat of the Barnetts right here. You are the record holder. What's the record? Are you talking about total units sold or just biggest summer?
Um, Probably both, but biggest summer for sure.
Let's
Um,
go.
yeah,
Not that we care about units, but how many units is that?
12 too.
You sold 12,200 units. That's the Barnett record.
That's the Barnett record.
Let's go. Good luck, Emma. I know she listens to these sometimes. You got it, girl. You can do it.
know.
Wow.
She just hit more for the first time.
Let's
Super
go.
proud of her. I know.
Congrats. I remember when my brother hit more too, and I was like, dude, I never hit more myself, but it's like, hey, it's a big deal. People work hard for that benchmark.
It is.
That's 1,000 units. That's so bananas, which nowadays is like $8,000 in profit, 8,000 some odd $100, which not bad. Pretty not bad.
Yeah.
So you also had a career in recruiting too, or did you ever focus on that as your summers went on? And how did that side of your business go?
Yeah, I did recruit, but I was an in-school recruiter. I never full-timed since I moved on when I graduated. I did bring out teams. I think my biggest team though was like 4 or 5 in a summer. A lot of them came back. So there was a big base there at the end, like a Northern Kentucky tree of booksellers, which was, it was fun. And a lot of them kept going, well after I was out. So that was fun to see and hear about even now, the things that, you recruit, you change somebody's life. You're just an introductory, right? Like person that passes it their way, but it's fun to see that experience for sure.
Amen. You do change people's lives, and that's a big deal to recognize. I mean, we just saw my student manager this weekend, the guy that recruited me, and I introduced him to my wife. I'm like, hey, this is the guy who changed my life. So, shout out Steve, brother. We love you. And we always say that on this show. I mean, we've had people who love on Southwestern on here. We've had people who don't have too many good things to say about Southwestern, but not a single one of them is mad at the person that recruited them. Like all of them were like, you know what? I'm glad at least that, Joe Schmo or Jane Doe, came up to me at the union or whatever that day. So heck yeah, you've changed lives for sure. Your 5 summer trajectory, was that 12-2 your last summer? Like, or was it like?
No, it was not. It was my second to last.
Oh man, what happened? Sarah, what happened?
Right? I wish I knew. Oh yeah, it was I was ready to be done. It's that mind game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I still hit 10,000 units my last summer, but there was a lot of
no big deal.
It was just the consistency was not there.
But if you go over 10,000, that's a pretty high. I mean, I think it's only like 50 people have ever done that or something like that. People who sold over 10K. That's pretty remarkable.
Really?
Something like that.
Wow.
Somebody, okay. Fact check somebody on that, because maybe that I heard that from
I'll
another.
take your word for it. That's cool.
I took someone's word for it. So, but maybe full disclosure, this could be like a bad game of telephone where someone said like 50,000 people have done this, which I don't believe, or something like that, where maybe it was like only 20. I don't know, but I know it's just a few number of people that have actually hit that benchmark and surpassed it. So that's not a bad summer overall, but but it's still pretty good. Now, in the summer that you had that big production, I guess let me ask, what did you do the summer before?
That was my first summer hitting 10. So I hit 10,000 my 3 summers in a row. Yeah. So is that what you mean? Production wise, what did I do?
Yeah, I guess I'm asking because one of the things that I like to ask about when people had big production, again, we don't overall it in the grand scheme of things, as you know, and as we've learned in the show, the total number of units doesn't provide the value of the human. So we've had people on here who sold 700 units one summer, and they're still doing really incredible things. So
absolutely.
I'm not asking that from that standpoint, but I do like to ask for people who were able to hit high production numbers in this field and in Southwestern, like, what was your mentality like going into that summer? And because 12,200 it's quite a big. I mean, I asked Yvette this, I've asked Amy Brock Devine this, Grant Greeter, some of these people who were selling big numbers like that. What clicked in your head to really get you over that hump? Because that's a goal that almost everybody that's an experienced person tries to set out for at some point in their career, but very, very few hit, as we've established. So for you, going from a 3,000 unit first year summer to eventually a full season bookwoman selling 12.2, what in your head as you were prepping for these big summers, like what were some do's and don'ts maybe that you could share for those listening that maybe are trying to either hit big numbers in their personal career or who are current book kids who are trying to really bust loose like that?
Yeah. Man, I think it's belief level. Like, I think if you run the numbers, like, everybody should be hitting that. Um, and I believe that 100%. I'd run the numbers during the school year, and it's like, okay, well, if your average is this and you sell this, just increase your packages. Like, just playing the numbers, it just makes sense. And that really helped increase my belief level in that it wasn't like, can it happen? It was like, it should happen. Like, if I'm working my hardest, then it's just there. Like, it's not up to chance. It's just go work for it. It's
Wow.
out there. Um, and I do believe that. I think everybody's a 10,000 unit producer if they get out of their own way. And I had a lot of good leaders that let me go. I mean, my first summer I hit 10,000 units. My cousin Stevie and Pat Roach, they were just like, you know what? Just be the rabbit. Just go. Like, we'll take some of the stat calls off. You just go sell. Just go sell. And so it was like, all right, like, let's go. So yeah, and I think, seeing other people do it and competing with other people, yeah, it's just a numbers game. And so I think to steal Peter Marshall's line, be dumb enough not to fail. Just don't try and reinvent the wheel. Just go out and do it. Work your butt off, and it happens.
You're the second person that's brought up Pete Marshall. I feel like you're third person now, actually. That's fourth person now that's brought up Pete Marshall.
He needs to be on this.
Pat Roach, Sharon McDonald, Dave Brown, and now you were like Pete Marshall. I need to get Pete. Hey, Pete, if you're listening, come on over. Wow, that's incredible. Now, you mentioned competitiveness. I love that because in Southwestern, there was always at least one person. And people are like, I'm not a competitive person. Not true. There's at least one person who you're like, no matter what, there's no way I'm going to let this person beat me this week or this day or this summer. Who did you have a person like that? You don't have to name them, but did you unless you want to?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's Peter and Sheridan.
I should have.
And Jack Clark probably too. Like those three. Yeah.
And Jack Clark the third?
Yeah.
Oh, we had Jack on here too.
Nice. Yes, they were all competition for sure.
And you ended up beating them for the most part?
Until I believe so, until my last summer. Then Sheridan blew me out of the water.
He can have it. You already beat him.
He can have it. Whatever.
You were only selling with your left hand or something. We say or something. You say it was just like you were
That's
going.
Right.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. The competition in the book field is unlike anything else I've seen in my life. Like the pie in the eye stuff, there's no way.
Yeah, I was never pied. I didn't want that.
No way. And the bliss, the sheer thrill when you had that pie in your hand and you were looking at the person, like just the joy. I mean, we're talking about that drive back to Nashville. That's a pretty good high. Almost as high is just shoving that whipped cream into someone's face. It's so good. Oh, I love that.
Well,
no, okay. Out of yeah, right. Out of your summers, where did you sell? So your first summer was where?
Pennsylvania.
Ooh, love PA. Okay, and then you went to.
I did not.
Oh, you. Wait, what part of PA was it? Amish country, or where did you go?
It was, yes. Ooh.
It's rough.
Yeah, I think I just don't like it because it was my first summer. It's not actually a terrible place, I'm sure, but yeah.
Western PA is rough though. It's brutal. Okay,
I learned a lot about the Amish culture.
Yeah, isn't it fascinating though? Like low key.
It is. I kind of wanted to be Amish for like 2 days. See what it was like. Like I think that'd be my max, but like 2 days. What's it really like to not have electricity? Like,
oh, it's phenomenal. My first summer, so I sold in Western upstate New York. So I was just south of Rochester. So like some of my customers' addresses my first summer I didn't realize had cross country or the state line because I was in the back roads, and some of them were like you'd be filling out the green card and they're like whatever Pennsylvania. I go oh crap, I My bad. So I was like in that area. And I remember driving, and it was the first time in my life. And I'm from Nebraska, it's where people think horse and buggies are from. No, I was driving down the road, and you would see signs for like, horse and
Yeah,
buggy.
the horse and buggies.
And you're like, what
Is this
universe?
real life? Yeah.
Universe. The fact that there's like a traffic sign for cars to be careful about horse and buggies is just alone funny. And
Right?
you can't beat that. You can't make that up.
I
So
know. It's wild. I remember standing on a doorstep one time and like hearing this like rap music. And I'm like, what the heck? Like I'm in the country, like their houses are all spread out in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, we're all like looking around. There comes a buggy with this like teenager on it, and he snuck a boombox onto the buggy, and he's like blasting rap, like just going all. And I'm like, what is happening?
you're just sitting at the door, horse and buggy coming in.
Like
I
the
love it when
Amish
you call me
guys, like
Big Pop.
yeah,
You're like, what the hell?
I don't even know. Yeah, it was. Yeah,
They were Biggie
it's a lot of
fans.
just. It's different,
Amish, we thought we heard it all on this podcast, but Amish listening to rap is a pretty new one.
I know.
Clip that, Amy.
I know. Yeah. Sneaking a
Oh my,
boombox onto the buggy.
unheard of, unprecedented on that one. Okay, so Pennsylvania. Where did you go next?
New York,
Upstate?
upstate New York. Yeah.
Oh, were you in the same part I was, or?
Bloomfield, Victor, Farmington. Yeah, we were like east of Rochester, I believe.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's some good territory, right?
Yeah, it was
It's
not
good stuff.
bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then you went to
California. That was East Bay.
okay.
Yeah, by
Whoa,
far the best territory ever.
really? Why? How so?
Because it's perfect weather and there's palm trees. Like, how could it not be a good day when you're like just walking past a palm tree?
This
Sounds
is true. Did you ever get off schedule?
No,
Not once.
no.
You didn't have the full experience then. Okay. Fourth summer.
Of coming back from being off schedule or what?
I mean, listen, I'm not preaching for this. I had 2 summers. 2 of us super, super on schedule, never deviated. And then the other 2, quite the opposite. So I would say that's more of the full experience because I saw both sides of the Southwestern coin, of the success coin.
Yeah.
I got the success coin and I got the failure coin. I got both, and that's
Okay.
pretty.
So you
But what I'm
can
saying is when
relate
you're
to both
leaving,
sides.
yeah, I mean, I would always do gravy, right? Because why not? But some days I'd be like, you know what? I'm gonna go catch a movie really quick, and I'd go to the movies by myself. That's an experience on the book field that, is pretty
It's
unique.
unique. Yes.
I can't preach for it enough. Okay, so you're in California. Holy cow! And then where did you go your 4th summer?
Kansas City.
So you
Right?
got the East Coast, the West Coast, and the lonely middle. It's brutal.
Right? Yep. But that was my best summer. I mean, it was like heat index of like 115, 120 every day.
Yeah.
It was so hot. Like
Yeah.
we'd bring, changes of clothes. You change after the first cold period because you're soaked.
Yeah.
And
And
like
muggy.
all our
Just so
execs were
humid.
like blowing the sweat off your nose and like,
It's brutal.
it was wild. It was
Yeah.
hot.
Yeah, I grew up in Nebraska in those summers. I mean, I live in Portland, Oregon now, and it's like those California summer. Like right now, it's like 85, maybe 90, but
Yeah.
there's no humidity. The sun's out. It's like beautiful. You walk outside and it
Yes.
just feels real good. It's like a warm blanket.
Yep.
Just okay. And then your last summer,
North Carolina.
you
Right
sold
outside Raleigh.
all over the place.
All over the place. Yeah.
That's unique.
Which I love. Like I actually I'm grateful for that. I think
Yeah,
was
that's
kinda cool. I got a little bit of a lot of places.
Yeah, most organizations, for people listening who don't know, or for people who are selling now, we just sell in the same area almost every summer and don't really move. I mean, I always sold in New England. It was like New York, Pennsylvania,
Huh.
Massachusetts, Vermont. Like we were always in that corner. But
Okay.
you got to go all over the place. That's wild.
Yes. Yeah.
That is so fun. Oh, I love that. Okay, let me jump into some rapid fire questions here, and then we can go into some ponytails. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Sounds Gucci. I love this. I'm having a blast. Thank you so much for your time. Okay, here we go. So you already answered this, but favorite territory, you said California.
Yep. Hands
Okay,
down, California.
no question about it. All right. Favorite turf, kind of turf, as in like country, low income country, high income country, suburbia, or like more like the close tight neighborhoods and like not interstate, but like the jam
Yeah.
packed neighborhoods. What was your favorite? Big Brick.
Definitely, I think Big Brick. Yeah.
Yeah. I,
Yeah.
this is gonna sound weird, but I've done enough of these episodes that by the time we get to these, I can almost guess based on how
Seriously.
your answer. Yeah, and I knew you were gonna say Big Brick. You're just
Based on
share.
what? Can I ask? What gave it
Yeah.
away?
Um, you see, like when people are a little bit more practical, like you seem to have a bit more of a practical approach. So you're like, all right, they said to do this, so I did this. And
Yep.
there's more, to you, like when I asked you about how to produce big numbers, you just said, I did the math and that's what made sense. That's not everyone has those answers. Some people, when I've asked them how they hit big numbers, they're like, all right, my mentality was I was going to serve. And I'm not saying that you didn't have the mentality of helping families and whatnot, but like the first thing you answered was the analytical side, the practical side. Whereas some people
Yeah.
approach it more like, I sat down and I wrote down my why and I cried, and there's nothing wrong with that approach. That's also a great way to approach it. That I don't think there's that highlights that there's no one way to sell a lot of units.
Oh, so many
Um,
personalities.
yeah,
So many.
which
Like,
highlights how anybody can really be great at sales. You've mentioned you're more
absolutely.
introverted
Yeah.
or you're more shy,
Yeah.
and so that being said, in my head, usually when people say that, big break is their thing, because they just think about it as, well, they have the most money, which means they buy the most books, which means it's all you got to do is just talk to enough rich people, and then you'll
Yeah.
hit
And
12,000 units.
yeah. I mean, it was such a challenge though, too. Like it's this
Yeah.
untapped, because so many people just avoid it, or like the
Yes.
gates, it's like, how do you approach a speaker? Although I bet now you have to do that all the time with like all the Ring
The
doorbells and
Ring
stuff.
cameras.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so annoying, I'm sure. But yeah, it was just kind of a fun obstacle, like how to connect through your intercom, right?
Yeah.
And just networking and the names and the referrals. Like it was just kind of a different ball game, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and once you figure, because they always said territory doesn't matter, and I agree and disagree. I think it does matter. It only doesn't matter when you know how to sell in every kind of turf. So, and you just hit the nail on the head there, where the secret to big brick is names. And if you
Mhm.
have good names that work, well, then yeah, territory doesn't matter. But some people didn't know how to master the name game. Some people were more just really good approachers, and they didn't even need names, and just were really good at getting people to
Yeah.
sit down with them. But that doesn't really work as well in Big Brick. So that works in like country or something, But anyway, long story
Yeah.
short, I see what
No,
you're
that's a
saying
good point.
is territory doesn't matter if you know how to sell all kinds of territories, but it does matter if you're used to like a certain kind or whatever. But okay, Big Brick. Okay. Did you listen to advanced sales tapes? And if so, did you have a
Yes.
favorite advanced sales tape that you listened to?
Um, I don't know if I had a favorite. Definitely like the Bill Zizzy, Dave Rosen. I think I probably listened to all that I had access to. Back then it was like the CD. You had to have your secretary send you the CDs, or like buy the CDs, right? Like you couldn't just like get on whatever. We didn't have smartphones and all that stuff, which is still wild. But like, you know, um,
LCC Dave Rosen, so good.
yeah, I loved them. I loved a lot of them though.
Yeah, so good. I always liked that one, and then Kevin Johnson's was so good as well.
Yes, he's hilarious. Yeah.
So good. What was your favorite product to sell or tack on back in the day?
Oh, um, I mean, the kids, I don't know. Probably the college stuff would be the tack on for sure. Um,
So good.
but yeah.
Good answer. Favorite HQ?
Oh, that's hard. So I had a few good ones.
Okay. Give us your like a top
Um,
out of the 5, your top 2 or 3.
yes. Probably my third summer out in California. Still talk to my book mom from out there, and good friends with some of the people I lived with. So that one comes to mind, and then definitely my last summer too in North Carolina. Um, that was a blast.
Good
Some of
times.
those host families came to our wedding, and yeah, so it's a lot of fun. Yeah,
Oh
still.
wow, that's so fun.
Yeah.
Did your husband sell?
No, his younger brother did, and we tried to get my husband to sell, and he had a better internship opportunity.
What, NASA or something?
Right? No, he went and lived in Indonesia after the tsunami and
Oh,
worked with Samaritan's Purse. I know. What a
ugh,
jerk. I'm just
ugh.
kidding.
Some kind-hearted people. Can you believe them?
I know. I
The
know.
nerve. The nerve. What's your
No,
husband's name?
Adrian.
Adrian. Get it together, man. You should have been
I
knocking on some
know.
doors, getting some calluses on your knuckles, bro.
Yes. No, he was around it and knew of it, but he didn't do it uh,
Love
himself.
it.
Yeah.
My wife didn't sell either. She thinks it's wild that we did. She's like, I just don't.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're a part of Spouse Western, right? It's a whole different crew.
I've never heard that before, but I love
No, Spouse Western. Yes, she's part of the club.
Oh yes, we love it. I love it. Okay, what was your best? And this doesn't necessarily mean in units, although it could be in units. But what was your best sales day? Like, it could be favorite and or best day.
Best sales day I remember. 444 units,
Wait,
sandwiched by 2 really crappy days. So
hold
it
on, hold
was
on.
interesting.
You broke up there. 400 and what?
44. Sorry, I was messing
Wow,
up. Yes.
that's not bad. And then you said it was sandwiched between two, like it was the meat of 2
2
bad
crummy
days.
days. Yeah, that was my last summer. And that's why I said, yeah, the consistency. Um, yeah,
Whoa.
exactly.
Okay, but when you say bad days, I mean, are you saying like, oh, I had a 300 unit day, and then 444, and then 250, or like,
No,
that's
I think the day before I hit 444, I had like 36 units
whoa,
for the whole day. Yeah.
and then 444, and then like 50 or something, like just
Something crappy. Yeah.
wow. What
I
happened
know.
that day?
I don't know. And that is the part that I love, like the mystery of the bookfield, of the mind game that it is, right? Like if you knew what it was, everybody would be selling like 30,000 units,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah,
if you could put your finger on what is that elusive key.
yeah. What is that? That's so
Um,
true. I haven't thought about it like that before. If you knew what it was that got you your best sales day, then
then
you would
you
have
would
just
just do it every
always do
day.
it. Yeah, but then again, if you did that every day, then that'd be your average, which means you would still have a best day that would be like 800 or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which is now weird. Like that's an interesting way to think. I don't know. Peter Svetkov, he actually stayed at my house for like 2 or 3 weeks. We were hosting him, maybe 2 weeks, and he broke the record and he sold 30,000 units. And I
Which
asked him, I'm
blows
like,
my mind.
isn't that bananas? Like just because you would think of like Dustin
Like,
and
what is
Dave's
that? Like
record.
20-week summer or what?
I
Like,
think it was like 15. I mean, it wasn't like he sold a lot.
that's
I mean, he
wild.
he just
Yeah.
drops. And I asked him, I'm like, how do you do it? He goes, well, um, everybody just buys everything. And I go, but what if they don't have like the young kids? He goes, well, it doesn't matter. They have friends, families. They could sell those books or they can give those books away too. But when I sell, it's the whole package. Like they either buy everything or they don't. But then if that's your mentality, then if you have 2 customers a day, then yeah, from there it's easy to sell
That's all you need.
30,000. And I was like, you have I mean, I've been wanting. I should probably go try to follow him. He's selling here in this area, so I'm like, dude, I gotta go follow you just to see how you're doing
You
this. 'Cause it's
should.
crazy.
You should. Maybe you would discover the key.
I think so. Maybe I should do like a
Really?
documentary, like a Ponytails Undercover documentary.
Oh, you
I'm
should.
like,
That would
I'm
be
here with
great.
Peter. No, he
We're
just
gonna
he just had a
discover.
sandwich. It's goal period number 2. He's eating a granola bar. Something like that. Okay. Okay. You're
In secret.
and release them as advanced sales tapes for money. Just be like,
Yeah.
every current book kid pays me $200 per day just to get that. Now we have business ideas. Okay. Favorite breakfast spot?
Oh man. I don't remember what it was called, but it's just like this little podunk, like could have been a Waffle House, but wasn't a Waffle House kind of place. Uh,
Love it.
yeah, just like
Just
mom and pop diner,
those are the best. Do you
kind
ever?
of dirty, right? You know, you're like,
Yeah,
I don't
you're like,
know. I don't
there
know.
could be rodents here.
Yes,
Uh,
there might be.
do you ever go back? Maybe you're traveling or you're road tripping. Like I was road tripping out to Oregon where I live now. One of the first few times, and we stopped to eat, and it was a small Baker City, Oregon, small little town, and we stopped to eat. I'm like, first of all, I'm like, I would. Do you ever think to yourself when you drive through a little town like I would crush it here. Like I would sell so
Yeah.
many books here. And then we stopped to eat, and it's this little diner. And in my head, the first thing I go, this is a solid bookman breakfast spot. Like this is
Yeah, like these are good prices. You could eat here every day.
keep it low expenses here.
Yeah.
I always think that. I always see that. I'm like, oh, I would destroy this town if I was selling here. It's always those mom and pop shops. Shops.
Yeah.
Okay, last rapid fire question is what was your best follow day?
Oh, like me following or being followed?
Either one. Where you remember,
Hmm.
man, that was a great follow day.
I don't know. I mean, the day I followed Dave Brown, like, blew my mind because up until that point, I really did believe, like, I can outwork anybody. Like, I will work harder than any of you, and I'll, whoever sees most wins and blah, 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 blah. And, back then, which I've heard they don't do this anymore, but the people that were following would have to carry the bag, right, for the person that was selling.
Oh,
Did you do
that's
that?
wonderful. No, but that's wonderful.
What?
We should have done that. Why did we do
Oh my
that? Why don't they
gosh.
still do that? That's a great.
I don't know. Like, yeah. So I had to carry Dave's bag, and he was just like, "Yeah, bring it to the door, drop it off, and then take your steps back, whatever, follow behind." And he would get to the door sometimes before I could get even like around out and around the front of the car. Like he's just, of course, he's not carrying the bag and all the things, but like
He's moving.
I'm like, I can't move that fast. Like he moves faster than me. Like so, yeah. Like I just remember, yeah, that was a challenge in a good way, right? Like lit a fire under my pants. Like I thought I was working hard, but there is harder. Um,
That's
yeah.
wild. And he was telling me he had 23 customers in one day once. And he 20 of which were in a row. And
Wow.
what was it like? Did you know like I mean he said that if he had 10 customers in a day, he was mad. Like if it wasn't a 12 was his no matter what, and 18 was his goal every day. How many did you see him sell or like that day?
Yeah, it definitely wouldn't have been a good day for him then because I think I saw him have like 3 or 4 customers, I believe, something like that. Like not a lot. Like I remember thinking like, okay, it's not that different than my days, right? But I did leave at like 5 or 6.
Oh,
And I know that like he was sitting on maybe 100 units or something by the time I left. Probably not even that. And then, of course, I asked him how he finished the day, and it was like, oh yeah, like 275 or something, like
and it's like
normal
no
day.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
No. Yes.
So yeah, so that was also cool, right? You never give up on a day. Like even the people that you think are out there crushing it might be 6 o'clock and they're sitting on 60 units too. Like you
Yeah.
don't know.
But that's the difference, right? He'd work until like 10 and 11 because he'd be so good at setting appointments, and then just gravy was just more of a
Gravy.
I'm
Yeah.
just coming back to sign you up because we talked earlier. Like
Yeah.
wow. Wild.
Yes.
Wild. Well, that concludes their rapid fire questions. And so now it's time for Ponytails. So for people listening for the first time, who might not be familiar with the show, this is where we have our guests share their favorite, like 1 or 2 stories, or I mean, if you have 30 of them, that's fine. But just your favorite as you think back on your Southwestern career. This could be the funniest things that happened to you, or somebody or the most impactful that, like, the moment that it changed your life, or it could be something crazy or outrageous, or just one of those like, no matter what happens, I'll never forget when this happened. type of moment. So I'll let you take it away, Sarah Jayne. And yeah, thank you for being on. And this is Sarah Jayne's Ponytails.
Yeah. Gosh, I was a little bit dreading this podcast just because I am terrible at recalling my stories. Like 5 summers and I can come up with like a handful. I don't know what is wrong with me. I was like so tunnel vision. Like even my sister will be like, remember the story you told us? And I'm like, no, did I do that? She's like, yes, you did. I'm like, that's pretty funny. I don't remember it, but I believe you. So yes, anybody that's listening that's currently selling books should absolutely write the stuff down because you do, like, I always thought that I will never forget this. Like, oh my gosh, this is wild. I'm never going to forget this. And then sure enough, here I am, forgot it. But there are a few that stand out that were kind of, I guess, impactful, which is probably why I remember them. Like those kind of cool moments where you're like, this is why I'm here. Right. I think one of the biggest things that I got out of selling books was a deepening of my faith, like seeing God in all the little things, like personal, right? Like is right there. And it was just different because it's just you by yourself all day, every day. Right. And one day I was, I said I wasn't ever off schedule, but those really long driveways that you go down, like probably not a house or not, but you're like, sure. Right. Like I'll kill some time.
It's like 2 miles. You're like
long driveway. Let's give it a go. So I believe it was, it was Pennsylvania. Went up this really long driveway. It was like a mountain, where they're like, bears are out that summer. There was all these warnings on the radio, like don't go out, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like going up this like mountain driveway. And then it turns into, all the no trespassing. And I'm like, whatever. You like keep going, turns into gravel. Then it's kind of like dirt. And I'm like, it's probably not, maybe there's not even a house. I don't even know. So I get up to the top and it's like this house being built, like it's in process. So there's nobody there. There's no like construction workers or anything. So I'm like, okay, well, that was, a waste of time. So I tried to turn around and there was like no good place to turn around because of all the vehicles that were parked up there and all these things. So my car, I actually like slipped off the gravel driveway and my car was like teetering over the, and it was like super steep hill, but I mean, trees everywhere. So I would have just crashed into a tree, like wouldn't have gone very far, but like crap. And, back then, like we didn't have smartphones, like our cell phones were turned off, probably didn't have reception out there anyway. Like it was totally different ball game. And so I'm like, I don't know, what do I do? Like, so I'm like, well, I guess I'll see if I can push it back on the driveway. Right. Like, what are the chances? That didn't work, obviously. So I'm just like sitting there praying, like, okay, what do I do? Like, I'm really far away from any other house because I just come from another house, right? And it's like a long drive. So to walk that would be like not good.
hours, maybe. Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, crap, like, I don't know. So I'm just sitting there praying. And then like 5 minutes later, this pickup truck comes up the gravel driveway. And he stops and he's like, what are you doing here? Like, there's all these no trespassing signs. I'm like, I know, I'm sorry. Like, told him what I'm doing, like all this stuff. He was an older guy. And he's like, no, seriously, like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, well, try and back up, tell him my story again. He's like, no, like, it's the weirdest thing. Like, I was sitting down. He's like, this is my house. Like, we're building it, but we've been building it for like 2.5 years. Like, I haven't been up here in months. Like, we're not doing anything right now. And he's like, I was sitting down to dinner with my wife. He's like, at the table eating dinner. And he was like, God just put it on my heart. Like, I got to go up to the house. What? And she was like, what? And he was like, yeah, I got to go up there. And she's like right now. And he's like, yes, right now. And she was like, okay, why? And he's like, I don't know. I just feel like I do. And he was like, I'm taking the truck and the chains. And she was like, why? And he was like, I don't know. Wow. And so sure enough, he came up and he like towed me out of my spot I was stuck into. And it kind of just blew both our minds. Like, honestly, like, I think we were both just kind of in disbelief. Like, I don't really understand this, but there's literally no other way to, explain this other than like God was in it. And so there were a lot of moments like that were just really
Yeah.
special, right? Like those God sightings that were, there's no other way to explain that. Like you can't make that up. It was
That's
really cool.
incredible. I think it was
Yeah.
Lima Crosskey after my first summer because I had to, we all. Here's a couple things that's amazing and beautiful about the experience of selling books is I think if you ask most of, if not all of us that did this, we haven't done it every time, but a lot of times you hear this where everyone has kind of like a story like this. And I'm
Mhm.
not saying that to make your story sound not special. I'm not. In fact, quite the opposite. I'm saying to highlight that it's like it happens when you're least expecting it, and it can only be. I mean, there might be people listening to this that might be even skeptical about it or whatever, but when it happens to you, and this is what Lee said, he goes, God shows up sometimes in ways that make it so there's no doubt that it was him.
Mhm.
Like there's no other explanation, which then leads you to just logic conclude it had to have been some sort of divine power or some divine intervention that just really helped you out in this situation. And that's always stuck with me, but that it's so bananas that it happens like that. God's coincidences, God ways of maintaining anonymous or something like that, and it's
Mhm.
just like unbelievable. Like I got chills when you were saying that because he just showed up. You would have been stuck
Right.
there.
Like, which is so cool. You're right. Like it's just an opportunity to see it. It's happening all the time. We just don't always notice. Like, yeah, God's sovereignty, right? The fancy word for saying he's in control of it all. We just saw it in a different way on the book field. Maybe it's the vulnerability and just the the brokenness. You're just like desperate and your eyes you're wide open. The distractions are down. Um, and that's, yeah, there's a lot of life to be learned. Another story that I remember that stuck with me being in Big Brick, right? These houses that I just loved looking at all the houses, like all these cool little random things. Like you have a waterfall in your bathroom. That's cool. Like what? Like just random like things. It was so fun to like go in and just see all the little things. But I remember this one mom sitting down with her uh, in one of those fancy houses. They look like they have it all together, like the definition of American success, right? Like got the car, the house, the jobs, we know everybody, the name, all the things. And she just started crying. Like I wasn't even very far into my intro or anything, and she's just crying. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't know what happened. Like, and she just looked at me like dead serious, and she was like, I just want you to remember this. She's like, I know what we look like on the outside. Like it looks great, but money is empty. And she was like, our life, like that is not success. Like my husband never leaves the office. Like we're going all the, and she just started listing off all these things. And she's like, it's just a facade. Don't ever forget that. And I just thought that was like, it was sobering, right? Like you think that American dream, climb the ladder, do all these things, and it's just empty. Like you can't take it with you, and it actually doesn't even make you happy when you have it. Uh, and so just some of those moments were cool to connect with some of those people and just the vulnerability and like connection that you could have with people. Just, I mean, you think about it now being on the other side, like you asked earlier, like now that we have our own houses and families and stuff, like, can you imagine just dumping on somebody like that? Like college kid.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah,
that's
there's a lot of
wild.
cool memories.
Well, and how do you go on, right? The next house for you that day. It's like still thinking about the last one because I mean, when that kind of person, and by kind of person I mean someone who you had put in a box of, oh, this is a success. This is, but then they get humanized by the fact that they open up to you like that and you
Absolutely.
make that
Yeah.
connection. It's wow. Oof, that is so good. These are some good ponytails. I see it.
I only got a few that I remember. I don't know.
But I
Give
see
me
why
here.
Dave was like, "Oh, you're gonna love talking to Sarah." I'm like, "Yeah." I see it. Understandable. Yeah, just such a cool perspective. I always like to look for themes throughout an episode. Like, what have I from a personal standpoint? I don't ever expect
Yeah.
anybody to hear this, and I'm very blessed and thankful to the people that do. Don't think I'm not for those of you listening. But I think what I enjoy the most of this is getting to have these conversations one-on-one, pretending like nobody's really listening or going to, and just really getting to know the human. And so I look for these themes of like, what is this person teaching me? In the same way that in the book field, every house, whether you like to look for it or not, some of them was a lot more. For example, in that case, that there was a lesson you needed to learn there, and it was very obvious. Money isn't everything.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Right. But in the same way, I do that with these episodes where I'm like, okay, what am I learning from Sarah that I didn't learn from Dave, that I didn't learn from whoever was before? And what I'm learning from you here is that like there's more to life than just your career, than just your your income or your level of education. Like what I've learned today here from you is just being very present and self-aware of what you're capable of is kind of what I'm getting from you. It's been really, really great. Thank you so much for being on the show. I've learned
Thanks
a
for
lot.
having me. Thanks, Pat, for forcing me to do it, right?
I'll have to thank Pat. Thank you so much. By the
Yes,
way, did you
Papa
know
Roach.
I met him for the first time this weekend? I've never met him before.
Pat?
Yeah, we've talked. I mean, we've met over Zoom or something like this, but it was the first time I met him in person, and we think it was.
Did he have some fancy pants on or some colorful, cool outfit?
Yeah, he did have a cool outfit on, I will say, and it was like a bromance. Like he goes
Instantly,
he
yes.
goes, it's true love, is what he said.
Sounds
Oh
about
man.
right.
So shout out to Pat. Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show. Again, I know I've said it a lot, but thank you really, really. It's been a wonderful, wonderful time with you. Can you believe we talked for 90 minutes? It just
No,
moves.
you're a fun guy to hang out with.
I appreciate that. I hope everyone else keeps thinking that. So that way they have a good time on the Ponytails podcast. But
Absolutely.
thank you
We'll
so much.
get Peter Marshall.
We got to get Peter Marshall.
him. Yeah.
And then I do want to do an episode at some point. We want to do this theme of like families that sold. So maybe having like maybe as many as we can, even if that means 12 of you, and just kind of having like a fun conversation with all y'all and watching you guys interact with each other. It'd be great. That challenge goes out to the Varbergs, the Powers, the Arndts. I don't know. I'm probably missing a bunch of others, but would love to have those folks on. But we're looking forward to having you back on with whenever Emma's done or some of your other siblings and maybe your dad.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well,
Well,
thank
thanks,
you guys.
Andres.
Yeah, anytime. Thank you guys for listening. If you guys want to hear more about either the coaching opportunity with Southwestern Consulting, maybe working with Sarah and or Will Metcher, who is the official sponsor for us, we always love sending people your way. So if you're looking for a career, maybe wanting to learn how to do it, maybe more part-time, I don't know if there's an excuse that was made for Sarah or not, but if you want to learn more about the career with Southwestern Consulting, make sure to reach out to us. We'll put you in touch with Sarah or with Will Metcher. If you want to get coaching from Sarah Jayne, maybe you're like, oh, how do I, this lady's so cool. I want to learn more from this lady. How do I become a client? Again, message us. We can also put a link below where you can go and talk to Sarah Jayne. Sarah Jayne, if you want to send that over to us, we can have that ready for you. Also let us know. But other than that, thank you so much for everyone for listening. We'll catch you on the next episode. My name is Andres Gamboa, and this has been the Ponytails Podcast. Bye, everyone.